What is going on, guys? The NFL regular season schedule consists of 16 games, meaning you gotta give it your all week in and week out. You can't just pack it in after 6, 10, or even 12 weeks, and then think you're just gonna coast into the playoffs. You gotta play good football from start to finish if you want to qualify for the postseason. Unfortunately, many NFL teams throughout history never got that memo. After a red-hot first half, these 10 clubs unraveled entirely late in the season and missed out on what could have been something special. Number 10, 2000 New York Jets. Things got off to a rocky start for the 2000 Jets. Bill Belichick infamously resigned one day after taking the head coaching position, instead choosing to take the job with the New England Patriots. The Jets brought Al Groh as Belichick's replacement, and the early results were promising. Vinny Testaverde and Curtis Martin led the offense, and pass rushing studs Mo Lewis and Sean Ellis combined for 18.5 sacks. The Jets stood at 9-4 through 13 games, controlling their own playoff destiny, but they were blown out in a pivotal Week 15 road game against the playoff-bound Oakland Raiders, which dropped the Jets to 9-5. 1 week later, they fell 10-7 to the Detroit Lions at home in a defensive slugfest. That dropped them to 9-6. The final blow came in Week 17 against the eventual Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens, who pummeled them 34-20. The loss dropped the Jets to 9-7, and they wound up missing the postseason. All they needed was one more win, and they're in the playoffs. But no, they barely showed up in those final 3 outings to miss out on the big dance entirely. Al left the Jets after the season to become the new head coach at Virginia Tech. Number 9, 2008 Dallas Cowboys. A year earlier, the Cowboys finished as the NFC's top seed with a 13-3 record. They were a trendy Super Bowl pick entering 2008, and Wade Phillips' team certainly looked like a championship contender through the first 12 weeks. Tony Romo missed 3 games after suffering a broken pinky, but the Cowboys stayed the course without him. Following a Week 13 home win against the Seattle Seahawks, Dallas stood at 8-4 with just 4 games to go, but the Cowboys let a late lead slip away against the Steelers in Week 14, and they fell 20-13. They bounced back with a pivotal home win against the rival New York Giants, only to lose a week later to the Baltimore Ravens in the final game ever at Texas Stadium. Dallas traveled to Philadelphia in Week 17, with the winner claiming the final wildcard spot in the NFC. The Cowboys put up 0 fight in an ugly 44-6 defeat, which saw their dream season end 9-7, with no playoff spot to show for it. It's one of the many late season collapses that define this team in the Romo era. Number 8, 2014 San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers were coming off their 3rd straight NFC Championship game appearance under head coach Jim Harbaugh. San Fran was unsurprisingly a popular pick to win Super Bowl 49, despite injuries to several key players. The 49ers fought back from 1-2 and 4-4 starts, and found themselves sitting pretty at 7-4, with 5 games to go. Then came the collapse that marked the end of an era. The 49ers were embarrassed 19-3 by the arch-rival Seattle Seahawks at home on Thanksgiving Day to an Oakland Raiders team that won just 3 games that season. The 49ers were dealt the final blow in a Week 15 road loss to the Seahawks. They dropped their 4th straight to the San Diego Chargers in Week 16, but the Harbaugh era ended with a 20-17 victory against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 17. The 49ers salvaged an 8-8 record, but nobody was celebrating after they missed the postseason following a 7-4 start. Number 7, 2008 Denver Broncos. The Broncos had practically no rushing game and the NFL's 3rd worst scoring defense, but quarterback Jay Cutler had a Pro Bowl season, and wide receivers Brandon Marshall and Eddie Royal formed one of the league's best pass-catching duos. After a 4-4 start, the Broncos won 4 of their next 5 games to sit at 8-5, with just 3 games to go. The AFC West rival San Diego Chargers started out 4-8. All Denver needed was literally 1 more win or 1 more Chargers loss to win the division. It was that simple, but the Broncos are on this list, so you basically know what happened. Following a 30-20 road loss to the Carolina Panthers, the Broncos dropped a pivotal Week 16 home tilt against the Buffalo Bills. Worse yet, the Chargers had reeled off 3 straight W's to move 7-8. That set up a winner-take-all Week 17 tilt between San Diego and Denver. Well, the Broncos forgot to show up to that one. The Chargers led 10-6 after 15 minutes. Then they put up 14 points in each of the final 3 quarters and blew out the Broncos by a final score of 52-21 to win the division. Denver's 3-game losing skid, followed by San Diego's 4-game winning streak, made for one of the most unforgettable late-season collapses in NFL history. Number 6, 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers. Unlike every other team on this list, the 2020 Steelers made the postseason, but that doesn't mean much considering how badly they faltered, thanks to a ferocious and resilient defense and a bounce-back season from starter Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers jumped out to a flawless 11-0 start, the best in franchise history. The Steelers weren't winning pretty. They barely beat some weak opponents, and the offense slumped big time in the second half. But hey, a wise man once said, "You are what your record says you are." Well, the Steelers' flaws quickly caught up to them, and the 11-0 start was forgotten about quickly. They were handed their first loss of the season by Washington in Week 13. That turned out to be the first of 3 straight defeats for Mike Tomlin's team. Pittsburgh bounced back with a much-needed 28-24 home victory against the Indianapolis Colts. They rested their starters in a Week 17 loss to the Cleveland Browns. But their once promising season that went sideways eventually ended on a sour note. The Steelers fell 48-27 to the Browns in the wildcard round, having dug themselves out of an inescapable 28-0 hole. In the first quarter, it was Cleveland's first playoff win since '94, and their first win at Pittsburgh since '03. At least the first 11 games were fun. Am I right, Steelers fans? Probably not. Number 5, 1978 Washington football team. Jack Party's team jumped out to a perfect 6-0 start. They proceeded to lose 3 of their next 4 games, but they got back on track and stood at 8-3. Joe Theismann was getting it done at quarterback. John Riggins had another 1,000-yard season. The defense was clicked in just about every aspect. Then Week 12 came around. Washington fell 27-17 at home to the St. Louis Rams, which marked the beginning of the end of their 1978 campaign. They proceeded to lose each of their next 4 games, going from 8-3 to an ugly 8-8 finish. Though the regression on the defensive side didn't help matters. This was mostly on the offense, which scored just 37 total points over the final 4 weeks. An absolute letdown of a finish in the nation's capital. Number 4, 1998 Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming off a heartbreaking loss to John Elway's Denver Broncos in the '97 AFC Championship game, expectations were high for Bill Cowher's Steelers in '98. The Steelers stood at 7-4 following a Week 12 home win against the powerhouse Jacksonville Jaguars. These guys looked poised for another deep playoff run, until they didn't. Pittsburgh's brutal collapse began with a Week 13 overtime road loss to the Lions. That was followed by a home loss to the Patriots. The unraveling continued with a sluggish 16-3 road loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pittsburgh then faced a 2-12 Cincinnati Bengals team at home in Week 16, but they lost a back-and-forth affair by a final score of 25-24. Now the season was basically done for good measure. Note the sarcasm. Pittsburgh dropped it to Week 17 finale to the Jaguars by a final score of 21-3. That put them at 7-9 on the year. The awful play from the defense and the struggles of quarterback Cordell Stewart didn't really help matters. He had 0 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions in the final 4 games. Number 3, 1987 San Diego Chargers. The '87 NFL season was reduced from 16 to 15 games because of a player strike. If there was a 16th game, maybe the '87 Chargers avoid a collapse of historic proportions. After losing their season opener to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers cruised to 8 straight W's. They had all the makings to contend for a Super Bowl, it appeared. But then Murphy's Law settled in. Everything that could go wrong for the Chargers did in fact go wrong. The defense unraveled miserably in the final 6 games, allowing 20 or more points in each contest. The Chargers offense didn't fare much better. They were shut out once and held to single-digit points in 2 other contests. Not only that, but San Diego didn't score more than 18 points in a game. The Chargers ended the once promising season on a 6-game losing skid, and their 8-7 record wasn't enough to make the playoffs. It was a sour ending to Dan Fouts' Hall of Fame career. He called it quits after the '87 season, and those Chargers were left wondering what could have been if they just picked up 1 extra win. Number 2, 1994 Philadelphia Eagles. Rich Kotite's Eagles weren't flashy by any means, but they kept finding ways to win. After losing their Week 1 opener to the New York Giants, Philly caught fire and won 7 of their next 8 games. Randall Cunningham was doing his job for the most part. Herschel Walker fronted the running game, and wide receiver Fred Barnett tuned in a 1,000-yard season. The Philadelphia team basically had a playoff spot in the bag, and most of the pieces were there to make a run at the Lombardi Trophy. But the Eagles suddenly lost all of their momentum and couldn't get anything going over the final 7 games. Their defense allowed 26 points or more 4 times, and the offense picked the wrong time for a cold streak. They were held to under 20 points in 5 of their final 7 outings. Philadelphia lost its final 7 games to finish at 7-9 following a brilliant 7-2 start. That prompted owner Jeffrey Lurie to fire Kotite after the season. Number 1, 1993 Miami Dolphins. The powerhouse Dolphins cruised to a 4-1 start, but the good vibes ended when star quarterback Dan Marino suffered a season-ending Achilles tendon tear in Week 5. Except, well, the season wasn't exactly over yet. Backup Scott Mitchell and Steve DeBerg did better than expected and helped Miami to an 8-2 record through the first 11 weeks. They picked up their 9th W with a memorable snow-filled Thanksgiving road win against the Cowboys at Texas Stadium. Don Shula's team was surviving without Marino. The playoffs looked inevitable. I mean, what can go wrong at this point? Probably just about everything. The Dolphins lost consecutive defensive slugfests to the Giants and Steelers in weeks 14 and 15. They were now 9-4. Though Miami's offense kept its feet on the gas pedal in the final 3 weeks, the defense completely unraveled and fell apart. The Dolphins gave up 47 points in a Week 15 loss to Buffalo, 45 in a blowout Week 16 loss to San Diego, and 33 in a Week 17 overtime loss to New England. With that, the Dolphins had ended their season on a brutal 5-game losing streak to finish 9-7. The collapse helped the Bills run away with the AFC East division, and Miami lost out on the wild card to the Broncos and Steelers in a tiebreaker. All they needed was one measly win to lose the final 5 weeks, and they couldn't get it. What do you think is the worst late season collapse in NFL history? Join me in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and TPS on social media. We post great content all the time. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, we're on everything. Go subscribe, go follow, go check us out. We're on everything. Like this video because we really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe to TPS. We post videos every day. Every day is a new video. Of course, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jason Biondo. See you next time.